For all intents and purposes, anybody you follow on social media who was at the Philadelphia Eagles Cleveland Browns joint practice today had nothing but some glowing superlatives about the Cleveland Browns. And then just now, the Cleveland Browns got some even better news in regards to the situation pertaining to their rookie running back, Quinshon Judkins. We will break it all down. Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network begins now. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd. We appreciate each and every one of you come to the OBR.com daily for your favorite written content from our fabulous group of writers. Also, while you're at the OBR.com, I highly suggest you check into the VIP access, which gives you access to the insider forums, the Ask the Insider features as well, and also bundles with a subscription to Paramount Plus. With the recent news from UFC, it is a steal at the price it is. Also, if you are a VIP access at the OBR.com, today's news pertaining to running back Quinshon Judkins may not be a surprise if you read from R. Lane Atkins. And continued support, we could not appreciate it more for the OBR streaming network, now over 10,000 subscribers. I don't know what exactly happened with YouTube last night as far as the OBR streaming network, but I think we all know what happened with YouTube last night in regards to any video that was not perhaps the New Heights podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR on Twitch as well. Probably just dropped within the last 25 minutes or so. Cleveland Browns rookie running back Quinshon Judkins will not have the case go any further. Quinshon Judkins will not face any formal charges from the alleged incident in South Florida, I've learned. This is from Andy Slater at Andy Slater on X. Prosecutors have declined to move forward with the case. Further details. The decision was based on several factors, including late reporting of the alleged incident to police, no surveillance video, and no independent witnesses. The state attorney says there were videos seen during the same time frame that didn't show the victim with injuries. First things first, as I've said throughout this, and I will always say throughout these cases, they need to be handled with respect. The victim has rights, and the accuser is innocent until proven guilty. It did feel that there were some questions here. And look, we all watch Law and Order. We've all seen vast majority of movies over the years, from the legal aspect. And I'm not claiming to be a legal expert, but it also comes down to what can be proven. There were some things here that certainly seemed questionable, but at the time, you had a police officer with a young woman in front of him claiming she had been assaulted. The officer's job is to take the situation at hand, make what he feels is the best decision. He's not the judge and jury in that situation. He is the one that takes the information and has to do what he feels is correct. And then he puts it in the hands of the legal system. The legal system obviously did not feel that Quinshon Judkins essentially did anything wrong. This obviously is some good news for the Browns. I think we were all kind of waiting for a Judkins update. And basically the updates that we were getting from the Browns were that there were no updates. This is now a true and official update. Quinshon Judkins is no longer going to face charges. I don't know if you guys follow Kurt Benkert on social media, former Green Bay Packers coordinator. He's really big working with Madden. He has his own football that he's designed, and it's, for all shapes and sizes, for kids all the way up to obviously high school players, college players. And he had actually kind of been out and spoken and just said, "Hey, I don't know what is real or what isn't real." But he basically spoke, being at the rookie symposium in LA for Madden with Quinshon Judkins, and basically just said it didn't seem like the kid that he had met. Of course, everybody can hide maybe some true colors at sometimes, but at the end of the day, it seems like the truth, came out at least. Where does this essentially leave things with Quinshon Judkins? My belief is the Browns are going to work somehow, some way to obviously get with Quinshon Judkins. Does that mean Quinshon Judkins arrives in Philadelphia somewhere between tonight being Thursday night and sometime by Saturday? The Browns and Judkins obviously are going to want to get a contract pounded out. That's first and foremost. Quinshon Judkins was never signed to a contract. Everybody just kind of stayed the course until, you knew exactly what was going on in this situation. So Judkins, obviously, to sign a contract. No, he will not be available in any way, shape, or form this week against the Philadelphia Eagles. For anybody who's ready to ask that question, stop. I guess the goal would be, if the Browns are playing on Saturday, you would think most likely the Browns are going to get back to practice on Monday or Tuesday. At which time, as long as Quinshon Judkins is healthy, has, medical clearance, and the contract is signed, you would assume that Quinshon Judkins will begin practicing with the Cleveland Browns. Now, you look at today being August 14th. So you try to do the math here as to where we are with the Browns in regards to Sunday, September 7th, the opener. So if today's the 14th, you have 17 days left in this month, and then 7. So you got 24 days before the Cleveland Browns have their opener against the Cincinnati Bengals. There's no reason to believe that without any hiccups and everything goes as planned, Quinshon Judkins would be available by the opener. He could very well be available for the last preseason game. I'm not saying I know what the Browns are going to do. Me personally, 2, 3 practices, I'm not sure I would run him out there. I'd rather just get him in a peak shape. I mean, if I drafted him in the second round as high as I did, I don't necessarily feel that he needs much preseason work. I think more of what Quinshon Judkins needs right now is to just, get back around the team. It's got to be a lost feeling, certainly. Very similar to when a player is injured and you're just away from the team. You just kind of, it's a difficult spot to be in because they become your, extended family. And, Judkins certainly, was away and certainly has missed a good portion to this point. Um, you know, Availability again, definitely not this week. Certainly could possibly see a couple of reps next week. Might not be the way I would go. I think everything would be about getting him every practice rep, every film room rep, pass blocking rep, everything I can do to get Quinshon Judkins ready for the opener against the Cincinnati Bengals. For Judkins, it's got to be a weight lifted. It's a really difficult situation to be in. And to his credit, he kind of just stayed away and, kind of let this process take itself out, work itself out. And Judkins ultimately, got what he was wishing for and what he believed, and that, he was innocent in this case. And it took a little while, but once it got far enough into the legal system, the decision was made, obviously, that it was going to go no further because they just did not find the story credible and they did not have evidence to back up whatever little bit of the story they did have from the victim. Brown certainly could have used some positive news in regards to their roster. Um, Not that today wasn't a positive day, and we're going to get to that here in just a minute. Um, but most of what this 2025 season is based on for the Cleveland Browns is going to be based on the 2025 draft class. It is going to be based on Mason Graham. It is going to be based on Carson Schlesinger. It is going to be based on Quinshon Judkins. It is going to be based on Harold Fannin. It is going to be based on Dylan Gabriel. It is going to be based on Dylan Sampson. And of course, it is going to be based on Shedeur Sanders. If these guys can all come in and contribute, Browns chances at being competitive in 2025 certainly go up. But the opportunity for the Cleveland Browns to turn this roster around, which kind of is going to need to happen because it's kind of getting a little bit old in a lot of key places, certainly could make for a much bigger and brighter 2026. So there is your news and update on Quinshon Judkins. Browns, Eagles joint practice number 2 today. Shedeur Sanders did suit up for practice. Obviously was held out of practice. The oblique and kind of the way Coach Stefanski put it was, we're going to put him down for a little bit, which makes it sound like, your family guinea pig being buried in the backyard. Certainly not that serious for Shedeur Sanders. It's an oblique, and of course it is tricky. And I don't know that there's necessarily a way to just say, 2 to 4 weeks like you do with a hamstring or, high ankle sprain, 4 to 6 weeks. Every oblique injury is different. There are definitely varying degrees of severity with an oblique injury. But what we know for now is, Shedeur Sanders is basically in shutdown mode. There will be no Shedeur Sanders on Saturday against Philadelphia Eagles. As far as the practice today, if there are any of you that are still carrying any lingering doubt about who the starting quarterback is for the Cleveland Browns week 1 against the Cincinnati Bengals, it's over. It's been over. Joe Flacco is your starting quarterback. Joe had a great day today. Touchdown passes. Started slow, but then once he got in the groove, he was really in the groove. Kind of the way it goes for us older folks. We don't have a long groove, but when we get to that groove, yeah, we got a groove, right? Only quarterbacks to take reps in practice today were Joe Flacco and Dillon Gabriel. Dillon was not as successful. It's been a tough road for Dillon Gabriel, for being completely honest. And the belief is, as long as everything, and basically what we were told is, as long as Dillon Gabriel is physically able up to it, he will be the starter on Saturday. My belief is going to be, it's going to be very similar to the Carolina Panther game, where if Dillon Gabriel starts, he's probably going to get as much as a run as the Browns want to let him get. And then maybe Snoop Huntley will get a little mop-up duty, just like he did last week, of course, against Carolina Panthers. It's going to be a weird scenario because Shedeur Sanders could have possibly not taken a snap in Philadelphia in practice, either of them, or in the game on Saturday. And if Dillon Gabriel does not show well, there is going to be a tad bit of an issue, because Dillon Gabriel is in a weird scenario where he needs to really pick up his play. And certainly last week hurt him, not being able to play or participate against Carolina Panthers. While Shedeur Sanders, everything came up roses and everybody was ready to throw their flowers towards him. This scenario was probably wonky from the second the Browns drafted Sanders. I feel many were in the same boat that I was, that Shedeur Sanders was the better prospect. Not a disrespect to Dillon Gabriel. And I think the Browns got to the point where Shedeur Sanders had slid so much that the placement of him on their draft board was probably a pretty solid number. Maybe it was a number right around Gabriel. Maybe it was higher. And maybe they got spooked away by the drop. Because that's the thing, when a player drops like that in the draft, like Sanders did, some teams, when they see other teams dropping and they're like, wow, I can't believe they passed on him. Then it becomes do they know something we don't know? Is there something out there that we don't know? So then all of a sudden the slide for a player becomes particularly long and great. And I think the Browns just got to the point where maybe the analytics kicked in and said, here's a guy that we have ranked 60 places higher than 144. How do we ignore our analytics and not select this guy? Yeah, I know we already took a quarterback. We already drafted Dylan Gabriel. But that could have been what was the resounding factor within the war room for the Cleveland Browns, is that Shedeur Sanders was still available at 144, and they could have had him valued on their board 60, 70, 80 selections higher than that, if not more, if not even more, probably more. So now Gabriel, and look, we obviously feel that the coaching staff has a good feel for Dylan Gabriel. They're Dylan Gabriel fans. But everything they've spoken and what they've put on Dylan Gabriel now, as far as accolades and superlatives, it doesn't mean anything. It's got to get proven on the field. And to this point, that's been the problem Dylan Gabriel has had. It wasn't a great day today in joint practices. And look, those passing charts, make of them what you want, I guess. I don't know. But what I can tell you is, from everybody that was there today, Philadelphia Eagle-wise, basically told you that the Cleveland Browns gave Philadelphia all they could handle and more. So much so that Eagles offensive lineman Landon Dickerson, currently injured, came out with a bag of Miller Lights and spent some time with the Cleveland Browns offensive lineman. I'm just joking. That was a cool gesture, and I wanted to get in there. But that's football being football. It's a respect thing. And these guys were talking offensive line play, had a couple of beers. Good stuff. It's what it should be. I hope there's nobody out there grabbing at their pearls over this. But all the pressure in the world now is on Dylan Gabriel. And certainly the missed time probably put him into this situation. Who knows? He could have split time with Sanders in Carolina and probably showed well too. Who knows? But now the feeling is that Sanders, even while injured, has this step up over Dylan Gabriel. It doesn't mean Dylan Gabriel cannot even things up and and with a strong outing himself, kind of change the narrative here a little bit and certainly, bring, Shedeur Sanders back to the pack, so to speak. But it's going to be a lot of pressure on Dylan Gabriel. And, that's never how you want to play. You want to play free. You want to play easy. Unfortunately, that's probably a luxury that Dylan Gabriel doesn't have right now. It's not going to affect his roster spot. The Browns are both going to keep both these rookie quarterbacks. But Dylan Gabriel, unfortunately, is in a difficult situation here where, basically they were neck and neck. And it honestly looked like the Browns obviously had Dylan Gabriel higher. But when it's come down to actually prove it, and in the prove it situations, Shedeur with a smaller sample size has proven it. Shedeur with a huge sample size against Carolina Panthers proved it and then some. And now you have Dylan Gabriel trying with that same opportunity Saturday against the Philadelphia Eagles, who are certainly a much better team than the Carolina Panthers. You got to prove it. It's just that simple. I believe Shedeur Sanders is the better quarterback. I believed Shedeur Sanders was the better quarterback. So it will not surprise me if the Browns sort to change their mind here and then all of a sudden realize that Shedeur Sanders is the better quarterback. He just is. Keep in mind, none of this is changing how week one is going to go. Joe's the go. Joe Flacco is your starting quarterback week one against the Cincinnati Bengals. You got a lot of activity from the tight ends today. David Njoku with a touchdown reception. Harold Fannin caught a touchdown from Dylan Gabriel. They ran a little hook and lateral with Harold Fannin. Tossed it to Dylan Sampson for a 2-point conversion. There was a double pass. If you guys remember, I talked a couple days ago where they kind of ran like a little jet sweep with Harold Fannin. Well, this one was kind of a jet sweep with a throwback to Jerome Ford on a screen, which, the drill didn't allow for it, but the drill would have had Jerome taking it to the house as he had 2 linemen in front of him, and Jerome would have just taken it down the field. Some fun things to be doing with a third round rookie, right? However, it's if you all watched Harold Fannin like most of us did pre-draft, and then gotten even deeper into Harold Fannin post-draft after the Browns had drafted him, this is kind of what he did at Bowling Green. Little bit of everything. We talked about it. Redshirt freshman, I think it was 4 or 5 touchdowns from the Wildcat. I found a good athlete. Not a super athletic testing machine, but certainly a good athlete. It's good to see the Chief, rounding into shape. There's been some talks about, some drops from David this summer, and it's always been something that's, at times kind of been there for David. And it's not, I think the thing for Njoku has kind of been like, 2, 3 drops over a 2-game span that were kind of crucial. And then all of a sudden, it's something we don't talk about for 5 or 6 weeks. David Njoku has the ability to make the incredible catch look easy, but he also has the ability sometimes to make the easy catch look extremely difficult. Still a dude, still an absolute beast, an absolute beast. If there's one thing we are slowly learning through training camp, and there is no questions about, that is number 3, Jerry Jeudy. Last week against Carolina, those guys couldn't handle him. Quinshon Mitchell yesterday had a huge hole on him on a slant. Jerry still caught it. Touchdown on an out route. And 11 on Levens had a slant against Mitchell again today that would have went for 6. And let's be honest, we should not be surprised that the Cleveland Browns went into Philly in a couple of joint practices and held their own. They only lost 20-16 last year. And the Browns had the chance to take the game in the end. Deshaun Watson took a crucial sack. Stop me if you heard that one before. Kind of screwed the game up and obviously buried it for Cleveland. But I think the thing that's really becoming not surprising, but really starting to stand out for the Cleveland Browns right now. And it might be, in essence, the best thing they've got going for them right now. This Cleveland Browns defensive line is really, really starting to come together. It was actually an Eagles reporter who said, I think Myles Garrett had 20 sacks between yesterday and today. Just toying with the Philadelphia Eagles defensive line. I don't think any of us, Browns-wise, are stunned by this news by any means whatsoever. Isaiah McGuire was on the board for today for a sack. Certainly looks like, they're trying and working on their possible NASCAR packages of trying to keep as many defensive ends on the field in obvious passing situations. Alex Wright has been kicked inside. We know Myles kicks inside. Opportunities for McGuire, opportunities for Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. And I think Cam Thomas is going to nail down that 5th spot at the defensive end. But these guys are all long, all tall, all athletic. Why not wreak some havoc? Of course, we're talking about Jim Schwartz here, who just, the chaos creator. Play man, stay with your guys, and we'll kill the quarterback. Don't worry about it. He's never going to throw it anyway. With some of these guys working into the interior and obvious pass rush situations, and certainly Mason Graham, and certainly Mike Hall when he returns. And I reached out a little bit here to some of the guys at the OBR, and they're not positive, but the way they made it sounded is like maybe week 1 may not necessarily be a stretch for Mike Hall. But it also seems like the Browns, are in no hurry to basically kick him out of the nest and see if he can fly either. So I think a lot of this with Mike Hall is going to have to come down to his own timetable and obviously what the Browns training staff feels as far as, where he is. There's really no reason to rush him back if he's not 100%. We can wait till week 3. We can wait till week 4. Most important part is you get all of Mike Hall, not some of Mike Hall. Also, Jawan Briggs in that room, who I thought looked pretty good against Carolina. And physically, I think, you see some physical improvements with Jawan Briggs as far as, body and, muscle mass and, the way, definition and all those things. I think you see a little improvement from the Jawan Briggs here in 2025 that we saw from the Jawan Briggs in 2024. Makes me wonder about a guy like Shelby Harris. And I know I've talked about this before. He seems like an odd fit in this defensive line room right now. I don't know if there's a guy here you could keep on the roster for a week or two while Mike Hall worked his way back into form. But I wouldn't be surprised, if, and I guess you could move him. He's older. I mean, but there could be a contending teams that says, hey, we're interested. We'll throw you some sort of day pick with the opportunity for that pick to grow in value for a guy like Shelby Harris. And the Browns maybe just go digging around and find somebody else to, fill in till Mike Hall is ready. And then really it's only going to be a fourth string defensive tackle from that point on. Certainly a name to watch in that regards. Maybe it's Shelby Harris for a corner. Maybe Shelby Harris is traded for a wide receiver. I think we can safely take running back off of the possible trade candidates for the Cleveland Browns at this point. And unfortunately, for a guy like Amani Marshall and a guy like Travion Williams, these guys are probably battling it out for a fourth running back spot with a guy like Pierre Strong, which basically is a job on the 53-man roster, and most likely you are not suiting up on game day. That's where the Quinshon Judkins news changes certainly some things. Overall, and we'll see how this team performs on Saturday against the Eagles. But I have to think at the point we're at right now with the Browns in training camp, I think I'm actually a little bit more, and my excitement level goes up and down, obviously, of course, with this team. I'm excited football's back, therefore I think Cleveland's going to be better than they are. And then the realistic things come in. But I have to say, going from last week in Carolina, certainly the game in Carolina, these two joint practices with the Philadelphia Eagles, I think I'm starting to feel like this team is going to go out there and at least be competitive. I certainly think you need help at the cornerback position. I certainly would not mind one more wide receiver in that room, and it doesn't have to be a lot of experience. Some experience would be nice, though. The Judkins news is obviously, definitely a little bit of a boon, and certainly has everybody, walking with a little more pep in their step. And those situations, of course, are always difficult. Either way, somehow, some way, something led to this being done. I am a father, so I certainly feel for the young woman, but you also have to be, certainly middle of the road here and understand, innocent until proven guilty, of course, like I've been saying. So the Browns get some really positive news from practice today. Their defense kicks some butt, no question about it. Their defensive line right now is a bunch of stinking Terminators. The tight ends, Njoku and Harold Fannin, are really starting to heat up. Joe Flacco is absolutely finding his stride, and there is no question about it. Joe Flacco is the starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. And then late in the day, you get this news. And again, the Andy Slater tweets that I read. And again, if you have the VIP access here at the OBR, you heard our own Lane Atkins basically telling you these same things. So for Judkins, it's, I hope he's been working out. I hope you're ready to go because, I think the Browns are hoping he's on the accelerated path and there will be no restrictions. Let's get him in. Let's get him signed. Let's get him physically ready to go. Let's get him on the damn field. It was a wait, obviously, that nobody wanted, but you play out the course and let things play out. And that's exactly what the Browns did. And fortunately, it went for Quinshon Judkins' favor, which also means it went for the Cleveland Browns' favor. And the Cleveland Browns get their second round pick back in the fold. 24 days before the opener against the Cincinnati Bengals. All of you supporters here at the OBR, we could not be more thankful, whether it's at theobr.com through all the written content from our fantastic group of writers. Make sure you look into the VIP access, which of course will get you the insider forums, which will also get you the Ask the Insiders, which will also get you great information from Layman Atkins about things in regards to things like Quinshon Judkins, of course. Small fee, but you get it bundled with Paramount Plus right now with the UFC news. That is a fantastic get. So highly recommend you jump on that. Everybody who supports us here at the OBR streaming network, beginning every night at 6 o'clock with Browns 3D. Following us, you will have Brad Ward and you will have Casey Kinnaman with All Eyes on Cleveland. Sure, it'll be a fantastic show with around for that. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR on Twitch. And with all that being said, this has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network. And we will talk to y'all tomorrow.